Well, it looks like we are live at last. And perhaps before I say anything, let me profusely apologize for the few minutes that have gone past 6. We should have started at 6 o'clock, but we are here. Obviously, I am not home. I'm not in East London. I'm not in the Eastern Cape. And but I am here. 6 o'clock, Monday evening, the Real Dialogue. Welcome, everybody. Let me mention, as I always do when we start, the first thing, that the Real Dialogue is not a standalone concept, a project, but it is attached to the Real Village. It is a concept of the Real Village, an initiative of the Real Village, where we get to capture and celebrate the continent's change makers. We celebrate them not because they are flawless and perfect, but we celebrate them at least for 3 reasons. Number one, because of the work that they have done in the reconstruction and empowerment of Africa, in serving Africa. That's number one. Number two, because of the work, because of how we feel when we are around their presence, how we as Africans, we feel about ourselves because of their contribution. Number three, because of what they make us believe Africa can be tomorrow. And today we celebrate that I'm such an African. I have said in previous conversations that December, which is when tomorrow, is actually a transition in the Real Dialogue. At my personal space, in the last month, I sat down with young people, and from today, for the next 4 weeks, I'll be sitting down with those that are still young at heart, but who still continue doing the work that they do. So for the next 4 weeks, I have got today's guest, Putco Mafani, and then next week we'll be having Vuyani Jahana. The week after that, we will be having a very creative person in the person of Khumutso Mushugi, the founder of No Limits. And then we intend to close the Real Dialogue for the year with Dr. Pastor Paul Shongwe. And that will basically be until we end the Real Dialogue for this year. But hey, today we have a very special conversation. I had to cut everything to make sure that I have at least half an hour to concentrate on this man because he's wearing so many caps. I don't need to introduce him. Ladies and gentlemen, please do welcome Putco Mafani. Chawe, welcome on the Real Dialogue. Umhlobo.
Kwalo, thank you so much. It is a privilege for me to be on the Real Dialogue, particularly because of its relevance from an African perspective in terms of finding its role in modeling Africa to what Africa should be. And so I consider it a privilege to be on the Real Dialogue. I've seen you host big names and great people. And so for me to be on the Real Dialogue is such an honor. Thank you, Kwalo. Thank you, Sibali.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are the ones that are honored by your presence. And I have had the uncomfortable pleasure of sitting down with a broadcaster before, and it's happening again. I mean, you know, I got to sit with John Perlman and on this platform, and now I get to sit with you. And it's normally the other way around. You are the ones that get to ask people questions. You are the ones that get to host these conversations, but you have been humble enough to allow me to take the mic, as it were, from you and put you on the spotlight. Once again, thank you so much, Chawe. I am really, really, really looking forward. This has been a long time coming. This has been a long time coming. I mean, we spoke about this. I mean, from the conceptualization of the Real Dialogue. I did talk to you about having you on this platform at one stage or another, and I just thought, because I am transitioning this week into the 4th floor, as it were, and so I thought, let me surround myself for the month of December with people that have walked the walk, basically, but we're going to be touching about that. Now we know the Hall of Famer. We know We know the change maker that we've come across. We know the person that, even if it's for just a moment, never fails to make us forget about our problems, and we laugh when we are in his presence, and that is Putco Mafani. We know who you are today and the impact that you have done, but it started somewhere. Before, let me allow you to take me through those formative years, but Putco, and then, where were you born? How was it like to grow up in the Mafani clan and Bhofolo as well? Any special memories with schools you went to? Let me give you the mic for the next few moments.
Well, thank you, Sibali. The Mafani family at Bhofolo is one of the big household names, so to say. It has a very rich history, particularly because there was once a very big man. In today's terms, he was probably what we would call larger than life, Utatunda Bangaye. Utatunda Bangaye, and I do relate that bit of a background in my book. Utatunda Bangaye, interestingly enough, Lichawe from the Bawana family. And somehow, because we were told when we were young and the family tree was introduced and narrated to us, and so we were told that he was such a smart fellow. During those days, I'm talking about the 19th century, and he, for some reason, chose to adopt his mother's surname, Mafani Ematsikheni, but keep his clan name Emachaweni Kwabawana. And when we grew up, we were nearly confused as children that abanye botatumncinci okanye onyana bakhe, they opted actually to be called Bawana, to run with the surname that he had opted not to use. And I remember one of his sons, Utatulungepi, he actually was registered as, he chose to be registered as Bawana, Emachaweni kwa Bawana. And yet, Utatunda Bangaye, he chose to run with his mother's surname, Ematsikheni kwa Mafani, and his father's clan name, Amachawe. And this is how it happened that Bhofolo, like, when you go to Engqushwa, Pedi, and Port Alfred, you find a whole lot of Mafanis there. But we are one with those people. And we are one big family in that sense. And Undabangaye then had 3 wives, and he also had girlfriends. But from the 3 wives, his senior wife then gave him a son, and the son's name was Mlungwana. And from Mlungwana, and Mlungwana's first child was a girl, Unomalungelo. Lo umaziyo wena ubizwa pha eMaxaki Church as uMamchawe.
Wow.
You see? Now wow. That's my mother, the direct descendant of Undabangaye. She is the firstborn of the firstborn, Kandabangaye. And Unomalungelo then, grew up with Utatake, Umlungwana, Nomamake, Unore, Unotamsanga, intombi yakwandaka, eMamvulaneni, eBhofolo. Babesuke kurumi pha ezifama, lezi yellow bones.
Sure.
And that is why Unomalungelo a yellow bone naye, because her mother was a yellow bone. Abantu bakwandaka in Fort Beaufort, zi yellow bone bonke. And then Unomalungelo was blessed with a baby girl, Undomenja Usisinjanja. And
wow.
yeah, and she was blessed with a baby girl, Usisinjanja. And later on, she had a baby boy, Umkhuseli, Knowledge Mafani. Bonke abantwana kunomalungelo ubafumane lapha ekhaya. And her third child was Mphuthumi, the one who's talking, who came in the mid-60s. And Mphuthumi ke wakhula naye being Mphuthumi Mafani up to this day, Mphuthumi Mafani, and being groomed and grounded with very, very interesting family values, very, very strong identity, and can I say also pride in the positive sense of the word pride, in terms of identity, knowing who you are. And so I grew up surrounded by many uncles. I mean, he had something like 7 sons and many daughters. His last born was Umute, who was too light. And he was given a nickname in Bhofolo sitting Ungawana. He was too light. Utatumute. Utatumute ge. Utata was setos no put machawe aba. No sugar, no hlanga mafani. And phakathi konyana baganda bangaye ke, there were those great men. No tatu Lungepi, no tatu Sheti, no tatu Nduntu, owayethuka kakhulu. Nawabiza program but it was a very warm family, and his girls included but not limited to Mrs. Magalela, Udabawo Unamsisi Elsie, who got married to Pastor Kunene Watson Magalela, Bhofolo. And one of Dabagaya's daughters got married to Nqupe. Loa utata uNqupe wayengumdala eNew Bright Church. Yes, ekhoni kapha ezantsi kwanumber 9. And utata uNqupe, one of the elders of a New Brighton Church, badala bakudala in New Brighton Church, who was friends with utata uMabenge, utata kaMzinqaba. And wayengumkhwenyana kaNdabangaye ke umdala uNqupe. So we so related. One of his daughters got married to a family yakwa Batman Magwashini, but I grew up with, in that kind of a warm family, a family of love. It was not a family of fighters. It was a family, that embraced anyone and everyone. Ifamily fuyileyo ukwinkomo kwamlungwana who inherited indlu yokuqala kaNdabangaye elokishini eBhofolo when they left eDryini, and bakhutshwa basuswa. Forced removals, the apartheid affected my family, affected uNdabangaye from eDryini basuswa obekwa kwindawo ekuthiwa kuKwaDubu, and so I grew up in that particular house. And went to church as a child, also eBhofolo, selinye ibandla eBhofolo ngoko, and went to school, eMaqoma Lower Primary School, naseNqaba Primary School, and that's my story. And of course, there were times that it was a bit tough. That, Smiley, I grew up those days when your pair of shoes would be just one pair of shoes. And it was expected that with this pair of shoes, you go to school, you will also go to church with that pair of shoes. And when you then go to school and you kick the ball around with that pair of shoes, and it get to be damaged, and you are disciplined by being told that you are messing up with the only, pair of shoes that the parents can afford, and okay, uthi chuke uye esikolweni ungenazihlangu njengomntana onenkani. I grew up, one of those boys. Ilokishi yakwaDubu eBhofolo was poverty stricken. So I grew up, like all the boys next door, grew up sometimes, without either a decent pair of shoes or without pair of shoes altogether, going to school. And ebusika siqale sikhethe amathole ezingomeni and then go to school. And while ulandela inkomo, you would hope that a cow at least gets to drop some cow dung so you can warm your feet there on your way to school, and inkobe was the staple food. But umamvulane umakhulu wam, she had a lot of ideas about maneuvering and making alternatives in the kitchen. So she would make amagwinya, she would make irostile, and all of those things. And at least, we would not go to school on an empty stomach because she was a hard worker. And she was a nurse at Tower Hospital, which is the hospital for the mentally challenged people at Bhofolo. Old, historic hospital, that one. And I grew up like many other children in the African village, where you actually say mama kumakhulu notamkhulu uthi tata kuye, because you think they are the actual parents. And whereas the biological mother is the one you say sisi kuye, under the impression that she is probably, your older sibling. See. There are many Black children who grew up like that, So I'm one of those. Until I got to know about it much later, Ndobam Norman, Lomdu NDTC kuye actually is my mom, But I must say, Isbali, and to the viewers also, that I didn't struggle with identity issues. There was a lot of love, Komafani Machawin. So I was not this kind of child that would corner your mom because you want to know about your dad. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think there was so much love for me that it sufficed that I knew that Utatum Lungwanam Tatam.
Sure.
And so I never asked that question. And I never asked that question from my mom.
There were enough male models as well.
Of course. We were surrounded with lots of father figures.
Sure.
And there was always a spark of hope for a better life, because these men were hard workers. And you will remember that from the dark days of apartheid, if a man didn't have or build a house, at least if he had a car, it was a symbol that he is economically active.
Sure.
And it gave hope. Sure. So, Onyana Baganda Bangaye, which is Abaninawa Bagamlungwana, or Mute, or Shedi, or Tatu Mlungepi.
Sure.
Those people were entrepreneurial, just like Undabangaye. Kwatadundu kwakuthengiswa kwakuqokelelwa ama-empty ebhotile kuthengiswa nezinye izinto. It was always business. And kwatata umude, we used to uzize ke yayingumama unozizwe, umama wobhutshawe no Bhutmerere. It was sasithi zize ke thina ke, because uBhutmerere nguye lo wayesithi zize engakwazi ukuthi nozizwe.
Sure.
And so everybody else followed to call her Uzize. And Uzize would send us out in the township when it's not school time to sell either vegetables or to sell meat. Amalusu namathumbu. He played up emizini. so that abantu babe nesapha enenyama, because we were sent out to sell. So the entrepreneurial spirit in the Ndabangaye family had always been there, because his sons were not well educated. They were not far off. So the only option was to be entrepreneurial, and also from an agriculture point of view. And this is where, you know, somebody was brought closer to a bit of agriculture, gardening nayo,
Sure. All right. And then look, we will touch about many of the other things you've actually briefly touched now. They are part of this conversation. Believe me, we'll get back to them. But talk to me, what kind of a student were you growing up? You know, primary school, higher primary school, energy, lots of energy, I would assume?
Well, I was, when I was 5 years old, I went to school, but I was underage. And my mom, you know, the teachers told my mom, hey, Lumdana, we are kala up. Because I would walk with the older ones to school, and those that were doing what is now known as grade 1, I would walk with them to school, and when I'm told to go back home, I would cry and refuse to go back home. If I were preaching then this evening, I would talk about crying to refuse darkness. So I would cry to refuse being sent back home, until my mom was told by the teachers, buy him a slate. Well, is late, and I don't know how I can explain is slate to the children of the 2000s, but
tablet.
But it was, yeah. But obviously not an electronic one, not a digital one. It was, and you're right, it looked like a tablet, but a dead tablet. So you would need something to scratch on it to write. The surface was not a digital screen. The surface was like similar to the surface you find on the chalkboard.
Sure.
And so this was used by the apartheid Bantu education to educate the black child. It was only used for the education of the black children. White children never used slate. And so as a slate, you would write answers to it. And then when it is another lesson, I don't want to say periods because there were not periods at primary school, but when it's another lesson, then you would need to get a wet cloth to wipe it off what you had written earlier, so you can continue to write something else. Sing my boys getting, I guess, as a is slate, so that you are able to write on it. And on it, you would use a special pencil. It is not the pencil that we use today, but it was a pencil. It was a pencil that was uniquely made for slate. You would not use a chalk on it. You would not use a lead pencil. You would not use a pen. It had a special pencil that was made for it, which if you did not have one, your friend could break a piece for you so you can write a slate in to attain your education. So by the time I was 7 years, I had been accustomed to going to school because I started very young, because I had a mind of being in class even when I was 5. So then I went to Makoma, I enrolled at Makoma Primary School for Sub A and Sub B under Miss Mashologu. And I was always this available boy to clean the chalkboard. When the teachers, particularly our Sub A teacher, Miss Mashologu, when she was done writing whatever she had been writing, then she would simply look at me, because by then she knew that I would jump. I would always be the first one to jump to clean the board, take the duster and clean the board for her. And because I had an inquisitive mind, she also taught me how to write on the chalkboard so that your sentence does not go like this or whatever. Because she could see that I was an a curious little bright boy. And then from there, obviously went to Sub B, went to Standard 1, Standard 2, still from Makoma Primary to Ngaba Primary. And can I say this, Sbali, when I was at Standard 2, in fact, even before getting to Standard 2, still when I was in Sub A, I had been caught at some stage having opened a radio set.
I was hoping you would go there.
Because I wanted to see these people that are talking inside this radio, these people that had wonderful voices, you know. So I wanted to see these people, you know. In the mind of a 7-year-old, it was like
they were inside there,
the radio, you know. Yeah, so I got a hiding for that. And they didn't know that there was some kind of passion that was developing for radio. Because then later on, when I was in Standard 2, I must have been 10 years old, and we were, which is grade 4, we were then the top 50 learners taken on a school tour from Fort Beaufort at Bhofolo to East London via King Williamstown. And part of the itinerary was for us to go to the East London Zoo and the East London Museum and to the aquarium on the beachfront, you know, and also get to feel the sea, you know. And it was such a big trip. There was nothing to beat an incentive for learners like a school tour to East London. By bus to East London, almost an hour or hour and a half by bus. And King Williamstown SABC was part of the itinerary. And so from East London on our way back home, then we were told, Bantwana, sizawungena radio bantu ke ngoku, so you can see abasasazi. And we went there. Wow. And Sbali, I don't know how to narrate my experience of that day. But when we got there, they started by taking us to the studios. There were very few programs that were done live then during the days of the Radio Bantu. And this is before there was Radio Xhosa. Sure. Obviously before there was UMhlobo Wenene. It was Radio Bantu, you know. And so we were taken to a studio where Utatu Given Klebi was recording his Sunday program. Eti bavumeleni abantwana bam, bavumeleni abantwana bezekum, ningabaleli. And we went into that studio, and there's a 10-year-old boy amongst other 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 11-year-olds. But there's a 10-year-old boy who 3 years before had been caught having opened a radio set. Now he is in the studio and he gets to see his favorite broadcaster, Given Klebi. And you can imagine what was spinning in his mind in terms of the sharpening of his dreams. And later on, then the teachers come and they say, so boniswe department sawusiwa a news sisiwe nase library where they keep records, LPs and 45s. There were no CDs then. So the only way of playing music was records. So they took the whole group to the library to show them where records are kept. But I refused. I said I wanted to stay in the studio with Utatu Given Klebi. And there I was sitting with him in the studio as he was going on and on. And when he finished, he turned around, was Pina Gustulo Sake, and he looked at me. What, oh, young man, Ndiyakubona mntanami uyayithanda le nto. Ndithi ke mna ke tata, ngenye imini I want to be sitting where you are sitting. That's ngesiXhosa, of course. Ngenye imini nam ndinqwenela uhlala kule ndawo uhleli kuyo nam ndibe ngumsasazi. And utata uGiven Klebi, he stepped off his chair. He lifted me up and he put me on his chair. He put his headphones on my head, and on both ears, I could hear my voice.
Wow.
And that day, it sort of told me that this is my direction in life. This is my passion. The first episode was when I was 7. The second one is now when I was 10. And fast forward later on, then when we get to Bethel College, then I get to, to be, you remember the induction, Yemisila, the newcomers, and some would be put in, would be given a harsh treatment as an induction. Some would be beaten while asleep. Some would be, they would smear Vicks on your eyes and aloe on your mouth, and they would beat you. And when you open your eyes, there's Vicks on your eyes, and your eyes can't see. And when you begin to talk, there's aloe all over your mouth, and your lips are bitter. But I didn't get to experience those things, because the one ill treatment they would do with me, they would put me in a cupboard, a locker in Pezul, and they would make me their radio. They would say, all right, Gemfana. And I don't know who told them of my potential. I don't know. Then they would say, all right, Gemfana. Over at Bethel, there were guys from everywhere, from Joburg, Cape Town, at Bloemfontein, everywhere, So they would say, all right, Gemfana, Masmamelindaba, Zigatu. And me as the radio, I would do it. And then I would do an imaginative news bulletin with about 5-6 different news stories, not having scripted anything, and they would then change and say, no, enough of the news, now do the weather. We want to know what we're going to wear tomorrow. Then I would do the weather. Then they would say, enough of that, do sport. Kaizer Chiefs is playing Orlando Pirates at Orlando Stadium. Then I would hoy the game and I would commentate. And it grew, Smiley. It grew. There was almost one career path that I could see in front of me. I saw a number of others, I must say. I also saw law. I also saw what are those? The optometrists. I also saw that, as other alternative careers, being a lawyer or being an optometrist and all of that. But this radio thing, it was just so crystal clear that it was going to be my career,
Sure.
So yeah. Can I just go back, Bali, a year or two before arriving at Bethel, while I was at Tinis High Primary School? A couple of other gifts and talents that are hidden in me were discovered there. I remember we were moving on to a new school in terms of the buildings, the structure, and we were expecting a senior inspector from the Department of Bantu Education. I think he must have been a particular Mr. Owens. And this man arrived. Before he arrived, my teachers, by then I was in grade 7, standard 5. My teachers, Usetos, Tozamile Nyagacha, Ubud no Ashe, Tozamile Nyagacha taught me English and mathematics. And Ubud no Ashe taught me Iskosa, and Utisharu Mama taught us agriculture. And Utisharu Foltoi taught us Afrikaans. We called him Foltoi, and I don't remember his real name. Utisharu Yeah, Utisharu January, we called him Ipokwe. He taught us general science, Ipokwe. So we had Ipokwe, we had Itata, Utishara Umasi, who we called Itata, ETA, Tasimtegitis, Asitinali, ETA, you know, and then came what is now known as the Soweto 1976 Soweto Uprisings. I was doing grade, in today's terms, grade 6. Yeah, standard 4 and standard 5 when the uprisings came. And you know what? We embraced the call from the bigger boys, including the boys from across the road from the high school, the only secondary school at Bhofolo, which was Lawson High School. We embraced the call from them that they were mobilizing us also to do pens down because it was difficult to learn our subjects in Afrikaans because the apartheid system was forcing us to learn subjects in Afrikaans, subjects such as mathematics, which we did as Western, subjects such as agriculture, which was landbouw. Now, these subjects ordinarily were not easy subjects, but how much more when they were taught in Afrikaans as a medium of instruction. So we cooperated with the bigger boys from the secondary. We also felt that this was unfair and it was too much. So pens down, strike, and unfortunately there were a few classrooms that were burnt as well, with the strike. And, we lost a couple of months, but thank God I afforded to pass my subjects, even though there was a disruption of a couple of months worth of the strike. So though the strike is today branded as the 1976 Soweto Uprisings, it was actually national. It affected learners in Cape Town, in Port Elizabeth, in Utenake, in King Williamstown, in Duncan Village, in Danzane, in Tat, everywhere, Bloemfontein, everywhere in South Africa. We were affected. It was just on another imaginatively big scale in Soweto because Soweto is, the southwestern townships of Johannesburg. But it was a national crisis for the then Minister of Bantu Education in South Africa. I don't remember whether it was Magnus Malan or whatever, but it was a national crisis, and we defeated Amapulu. Our parents were very worried. They said, no, you children, you better stop this because Amapulu will wipe you out. But we defeated them. And the generations that followed thereafter were never taught mathematics in Afrikaans again as Veskende. They were never taught agriculture again in South Africa as landbouw and other subjects, So it was a victory of the youth. It was a struggle of the youth, and we victored. Apartheid was evil, and apartheid was deeply entrenched, sometimes also in the minds of the parents, because they would say, but we soldiered on. Correct. Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
correct.
So we will end, and we will touch, your social consciousness and views, of course, not just about South Africa, Soweto, but the continent entirely, Africa. But we'll definitely get there. Now, tell me, I promise you that story about Utata given that you narrated earlier on really got to me at so many levels. Number one, there is the power of seeing someone that looks like you already doing something you would like to do tomorrow. And the power of modeling. And it's even more powerful and effective when the person that you are looking up to, for whatever reason, like I said, speaks your language. knows where you come from, knows your clan name, looks like you. I mean, we could talk the entire 30 minutes about that. That's number one. But also number two, the humility and the words that he spoke to you of affirmation, that I mean, for him to get out of his chair and install you there, the symbolism that, of course, much later was confirmed and realized. I mean, like I said, we could have the entire organization about that exchange, but let's leave it there. Now, you actually
just on that point. Inspiration comes in different packages. Inspiration, sometimes one can begin by modeling something for you, but sometimes you may be inspired by someone who did not even model you. So inspiration comes in different packages, but I was lucky because I was inspired by someone who was not even aware that he was modeling this career for me.
Sure.
And I'm trying to imagine what a better South Africa it would be if all of us found someone younger to inspire, someone younger to model lifestyle socially, the values and the ethics, model Christianity or religion, model career or entrepreneurship, model whatever. If all of us, and in our various professions, we found a young person to inspire, because that's what he did to me. So by the time I get to boarding school and all of these things happen, the dream has been sharpened, because I now got confirmation and affirmation from him that one day I will sit on the chair he's sitting.
Now, let me stop you there. I wrote earlier this week, I may have even said it to you personally, but one of the most spiritual experiences, I'm just using the word spiritual because maybe my vocab is limited, or maybe human language is limited to articulate and describe this. But there is something about seeing someone do what you think they were put in this world for. And I mean, I could give you, especially now with the history that you've just shared for me, but even outside of that history, I mean, I could look into your makeup biologically, the beautiful voice that you have, the open mind that you have, the love, the genuine love for people that you have, the kind of life you had growing up, and even where you grew up. I could make a case and say Putco Mafani was born to hold the mic and inform and inspire and entertain us. He's a born broadcaster. Now, it's one thing for me as an outsider to see that. After these many years, are you at a place where you can say, you know what, I was born for this?
Well, the only remaining aspect of it is soon, early 2021, hopefully, when we get to launch our radio station, so that I could say what I was born for, I now own. Because ownership of what you think you were born for also becomes important. Participating in the entire value chain, particularly the responsibility to be able to reproduce yourself, the responsibility to be able to model and produce others. And that, for me, you know, the Rhythm FM dream, though it's a deferred one and delaying because of whatever reasons, which I would not love to delve into now. But when it then gets to be realized, it will give me two aspects of what I know to have been born for, which is broadcast. It will complete the desire to produce other broadcasters of a particular quality. There are broadcasters, particularly on radio, which have not been heard yet. And those are the ones that I will produce. When I then occupy the office of station manager, and I'm talking about quality recruitment of broadcasters and quality training and the quality articulation of broadcasters.
Sure.
That part has not happened yet, and that part is coming. That part is coming. By God's grace, that part is coming.
No, definitely. And I believe so as well. And I want us to speak about that before we finish this conversation. There is a section where we will be speaking about what is yet to come. We'll definitely be speaking about that later on. But I needed to mention the whole issue of being gifted to do something, because it is it's just one of those things. I mean we will also touch on this book later on, and but one of the things that when one thinks about Putco Mafani, one of the words that come to mind is gift and being gifted. Now, tell you what. Before I go there, but perhaps
let me help you. Let me help you with something there, Smiley. While you are collecting your thoughts,
sure.
Let me help you with another revelation, and perhaps there's a percentage of your audience which will be hearing this for the first time. Let me help you with this. I was born in a family of gifted people. The Mafanis generally are gifted people. There's a lot of talent there.
That's true.
And so from a family perspective, whatever I do is not a wow. It is something that defines them. It is like a deployment. Whatever I do, whether it's on Radio Ciskie or UMhlobo Wenene FM or on television as a presenter, from a family point of view, from a family perspective point of view, it is something that my family expects me to do. It's like I say, it's like a mandate. It's like a deployment because it is a family of gifted people. I mean, when I look around my brothers, and I need to say this, particularly when it comes to our children, our sons and daughters, I believe there are some who are even more gifted than I am. And I do challenge my children when it comes to that, to say, you know what, guys, you guys are actually even far better gifted than I am. And you need to work at it. There is so much talent in abundance in the family. My brothers, I mean, you look at Setos, one of my role models when I grew up in the 70s, as I was going through primary school, and even when I was at boarding school going through high school, one of my role models, and I got a lot from him, was Setos.
And is your brother?
The coincidence is that he is my brother. He was my role model from an emceeing point of view. MC. There was a hall at Bhofolo, a community hall that was named Stahalem Hall. And this is where Usetos, in his 20s, as a young, vibrant, handsome teacher, he would grab the microphone. And this is somehow also how I fell in love with the microphone. He would romance that microphone, emceeing Abo Miss Fort Beaufort, emceeing Abo Miss Ellerins, emceeing abo Miss Alice, abo Miss this, abo Miss that, you know, and I would go like, wow, you know. So, and then later on, Usetos leaves teaching, and he goes to Radio Xhosa. It was already Radio Xhosa then. And I'm like, wow, this man, here's another coincidence. This radio broadcaster thing that I want, he's now getting there. So now I am finding myself with an abundance of role models. Ula given Kledi, Ula Fikile Lubisi, right at home. He is on radio. So the family is highly gifted. I mean, Abu Hlanga. There was a time when Hlanga was an SABC news reporter from Cape Town, a reporter called Putco Mafani, a Gaba, and he's got this rich voice. I mean, Hlanga and Seto's voices, wow, they are rich and rounded. Mine is a bit husky, and I'm coming to something that I said it would be a revelation. Usato's happens to have been one of those youngsters at Bhofolo that were taught by my biological father. So my biological father, Utisharusi Pomnyaiza Itolo, was Seto's teacher. In my book, Setos does contribute and talk about Utisharu Nyaiza. They used to call him Ukazi. He had a nickname. Now, Usatos and others who were taught by him, they tell me that that man was gifted. That man had a lot of energy. He used to say, and that would be Setos actually, like, you know, telling me how he sounded like. Because unfortunately, I never had a moment with him. I never had a minute with him. I never had a day with him. Well, a day that I will remember, except that my mom says when I was a young boy, like 4 years, 5 years, he would come, take me, bilokishi yonke nomntana embeke emagxeni, abukele ibhola, abuye nomntana later elambile baxabane ngalonto aqumbelane, and that's why when a song by Luther Vandross that says, dance with my father again, if I could get another day, another moment, another dance with him, I'd play a song that would never, never end, 'cause I would love, love, love to dance with my father again. And that's only because I don't have those memories. I was a child. And he would take me on his shoulders. But I never got, when I was old, a moment to interact with him. Only after, when I was around, I think I must have been 33 years, 34 or 35, whatever, when I got to be introduced to some of his blood children, who are my blood brothers, some of his sons. And I was told about Andile in East London, and we met, and our voices, no, Andile, are like the same. And those people who know the big man, they say, this husky voice, I got it from him. And you get it from Andile as well. And so I met Andile, and, you know, it was a great union when I met him. And I remember saying to him, hey man, where is the old man? Because I'd love to see the old man. I don't know the old man. And Andile was like, yeah, hey, he retired now. You know, he retired from teaching. He's busy in Ranana, agriculture. And Mount Aleph. I said, Mount Aleph? He says, yeah. Originally, the old man is from Mount Aleph. I said, yo. So how do you take me? And when do you take me there? He said, no. When you come to the Eastern Cape again, by then, I was already living in Joburg. I was actually a TV presenter at Sense Cosmo Live, just before I joined Kaizer Chiefs. You know, it was a time when I was doing Cosmo Life, and I was shooting productions also, like Reflections of Guilt, like Generations. I played a little bit on Generations as well, and so Andile says, no, next time when you are in the Eastern Cape, then you must tell me. Then I will take you to Mount Elif so you get to see the old man, because Umama, which is Andile's mom, talks a lot about you. He told us about you. Unonyana na angu ya TV ni mbona, so they could see me from a distance on TV, you know. And so when I got back to Joburg, we had those plans, no, Andile. But sooner than later, I think less than a week later, Andile called. He said, hey, man. I said, hey, sir, are you granting the way? He said, yeah, hey, but the news is not good. I said, what's happening? He said, yeah, the old man is late. I moved in. He says, yeah, no, the old man is late. He'll be buried this coming Saturday in Mount Elif. Are you going to come? I said, yeah, I want to come. Sorry. I said, yeah, I want to come. I have to bury the old man. Though I did not spend years with him, but his investment in me was his genes. His contribution in me was his genes. But it is a very interesting irony that these genes, the way I am, the charismatic, lovable, loving, easy to reach out, easy to deal with people, always seeking love and peace, you know, always entertaining people. I took that unknowingly. Part of that is genes from him. And part of that, interestingly enough, is the modeling, Ekaya Wamafani. And for me, that is the double explosion of genes. What a coincidence. It was like that man as if he also belonged to the Mafani family, because everything that I hear about him, namachamba, it is everything that is there kwa Mafani. I went on also to become a teacher, and I taught the subjects he had taught unknowingly. So just to wrap up his story. Yeah, look,
wow.
Let me wrap up this part.
Sure.
So I drove to Mount Elif from Joburg. I asked Mpati Sifildani, whose father was buried a few days ago, Dadu Ubramne Sifildani of the UDM. I asked his son, Umpatis, my friend, I said, hey man, how do I go to Mount Elif from Joburg? So he gave me the directions. He said, yeah, from Joburg, you hit N3 like you're going to Durban. And then in Maritzburg, you hit the Ikopo off ramp, and it will take you to Kokstad. And when you get to Kokstad, you must find a place, book there, sleep, because the funeral is on a Saturday morning. So I did that whole trip on a Friday afternoon, going alone to bury my father, who I have no memories of, who I have never seen. So I did the trip, and I booked at a place that is there by the garage. And early Saturday morning, I drove down to Mount Elif. It's a short drive, 15, 20 minutes. I drove to Mount Elif. And as I get to Mount Elif, at that engine station there, when you get to Mount Elif at down, I stopped at the station not to fill petrol, but to ask the petrol attendants if they knew the directions to the funeral ya Gwamnyaiza. And these guys, they recognized me. So this guy that I'm asking, he's like, hey, Putco Mafani. I said, yes, man. You can imagine, this guy is excited to see me. And my mind is spinning emotionally because of why I'm here. And this guy calls the others in garage. Yes, and they come, and we have a moment. I have a moment with him. Can I say this? There are times in life where you have to pack your pain and just attend to people, particularly when you work as a public figure. There are times when you have to park your pain. You will revisit it, but you park it for a moment to give these people what they deserve, because they have not lost a father. All they see is what is the icon they love. And I say this because, you know, when we are on radio and when you are on a soccer field, if you're a soccer player or a netball player or a tennis player or a golfer, or on stage if you're a singer, when you have fans, it is important to stop for a moment and give them your time. Give them the time. Give them the love. Because all of us, we're doing what we love, but we've got to love what we do. Loving what we do means also respecting the people that make you, the fans. Loving what you do means respecting time. Mina, I'm so passionate about time. I just love timekeeping. Oh, you missed out on something about Bethel, but it's fine. We'll talk about those areas that were painful in my life, then I will remind you. So I spent a little bit of time with these guys, but they gave me the directions to get to the house, and I went to the funeral. It was a big house with a big tent, packed. It was like the funeral of a celebrity. And like the guys at the garage, when I said to them, I'm looking for the funeral of Mr. Sipho Mnyaiza, they said, oh, uzekla mngcwabo kwaSkalk nawe. Oh, ngabantu abagqitha apha bazekla mngcwabo. I said, mngcwabo kwaSkalk? They said, yes. Utshela uMnyaiza kaloku ebezibiza uSkalk, inkosi yamaLawu, esithi akayithandi le nto bamaLawu engenankosi. I said, what kind of a man is this that I've missed? You know? and you know what? When I heard about that, though my mind is dealing with the pain, but you know, this story, man, I'm like, you know. And so finally I got there, and Andile saw me when I arrived. As soon as I parked the car, he was the only one I knew there, Andile. He approached me and he walked in with me, and we went to the bishop's, because the part of the funeral where the coffin is opened and you get to see the person and do the closure, that part had gone already. So, but Andile then negotiated with the senior family members, Abo Rahadi Bada, and Nabo Tato Mnini and Nabo Bishop Uguti. Here is one of his children who has never seen him. So he has come all the way to see him. So I said to Andile, tell them that I want to see him. For me, it matters that I see him. So indeed, you know, they accommodated that, and the coffin was opened. And I draw closer, you know. As I draw closer, I saw him, and this is where I saw Lempandlali. I saw it as he was lying there. It was my first time to see him. You know, he couldn't talk because he was sleeping. He was dead. He couldn't say all those things that ordinarily a man must say to his son. He couldn't say, my boy, what are your dreams in life? What do you want to be in life? He couldn't say all of those things, you know. And so I stood there. It got a bit emotional then with Andile and myself until we moved away. And that's the last that I know about my old man. And I don't crucify my mother for that. I don't crucify anybody. Instead, I'm proud of my mom. She did everything for me. And she knew that one day God will make it possible that I meet the old man. But unfortunately, maybe my mom also never imagined that I would meet him while he was sleeping his sleep of death. And I sometimes think maybe if I had a moment with the old man, I could have halved the mistakes I've committed in life. Let me repeat this. I sometimes think that if I had a moment with my father, and I'm talking about now real biological father modeling for boy child, I sometimes think that if I had had a moment with him, maybe I could have halved the mistakes that I've made in life. I sometimes also think that if I had a little bit of time with him, even phone calls and conversations, maybe I could have doubled the little bit of achievements that I have seen in the little bit of success. But then somebody said to me, and they said something that was deeply, deeply spiritual. They said, well, it didn't happen. And with God, it is not like he didn't know that it would happen. There is nothing called a blind spot with God. He allowed it to happen so that your story can inspire someone who does not know his father. This evening, as we're chatting on this show, there's a young person somewhere, a young girl or a young boy who doesn't know their father. And when they listen to a story of someone who has achieved so much in radio and television and football and many other things, and went on to become an author, at least that child will know that not knowing my father is not an excuse in life for me to give up on my dream and give up on my greatness. Because I want to tell them tonight, if there's one thing, though you don't know your father, if there's one thing that you cannot do, it is to disappoint your dreams. It is to quit your dreams. You cannot let your dreams down simply because you don't know your father.
Mm. 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 Well said, Smiley. Well, absolutely well said. Now, you've actually, okay. A lot of people are actually saying here, and I think Osis Kanye speaks on behalf of so many people that have been touched by you reliving that experience, that you get to see your father for the first time when they cannot see you. And I love how you do not seek to understate what would have been his contribution had he been present, because that's very important. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons it is easier for us, those of us who have not had father figures, to perpetuate the same with our own children is because we look at us and say, hey, I'm successful, who needed a father? But I love how you eloquently say it. Said, hey, you are successful, but imagine if your father was in your life, how much more of a success you would have become. So now, I am saying that one of the things that maybe a lot of people do not know about you, and I do want us to touch on this. One of the things that I admire about you is in your mistakes that you've spoken about, that you would have halved. But the one thing that needs no halving, and the one thing that needs no amplifying because you are doing well, is being a present father. Now, what makes that even more important for me is the story that you've just told, because that story can easily become a good excuse for perpetuating the same narrative in your own children. Was that ever a deliberate decision at some stage of your life that, you know what, if I have children, I am going to be present. When I have stuff, I will share with them. When I don't have stuff, I'll just be present with my children, because that is one thing I have come to know about you, a present father. And that is a huge thing for the Black child and fatherlessness that is plaguing us. Talk to that, Putco, please.
One of the things, Smiley, and I don't want to lie to you and say I made a formal vow. But one of the things Because even with fathering, I've had my fair share of mistakes.
Sure. Like all
particularly when you experience things like divorce in life, and you find yourself on a disconnect. But I have consciously refused the disconnect to say, let's reconnect. Let's find a civil, manageable parenting relationship. If we happen to be parenting together,
sure.
you know, and then I was lucky also, 2006 when Mam Khenebe came to my life, because we then partnered and she assisted, in breaking the barriers. I think all children who are disadvantaged in the sense that they don't have mommy and daddy under the same roof, they need a willing partner of their biological parent that is willing to champion the breaking of the barriers, and so partnering with her, and I would love to thank her with all my life about that. Partnering with her, we have taken stock of who's there and where do they live. Do they still live with their biological mother? And then she would actually, after I shall have introduced her to the biological mother, then she would actually then champion the dealings and doings with the biological mother on the other side. It has worked quite well for us, because then she championed nokoluka kwabantwana. She championed nokuchata kwabantwana. She championed 3 of the weddings zabantwana bam engengo bakhe. She championed imigidi to a little while ago. She championed umgidi kamhlangovuyo eBeacon Bay. It was such a big affair, beautiful occasion. And yanguye uthi ku biological mother kaVuvu, wena nam singamazibazana emgidini sahlala sobabini so that umntana ahlale notata akhe xa ekubona abone mna, xa endibona abone wena, so that siphelele phaya and run the occasion yomntana, so that umntana is the primary concern kulo mcimbi wakhe. And for that I will be eternally grateful to Illuminati for having championed that. She continues to champion those kind of relations. I think Sibali, as I said earlier on, it didn't happen that I am grown by my father, but if I could have it my way, I would encourage onke amadoda, let's go find abantwana.
Sure.
Let's find them, particularly a boy child who, when ignored, can be, crucified for being the perpetrator of a whole lot of other social ills. Sure. Because akafumananga tough love kadada. And where udada is not there, it probably also will help if single mother ngama school holidays can take umntwana amfake ebhasini eplanini eteksini athi yakudada, so he can get the tough love kadada. If udada is not there altogether, amtroke aye kumalume kwi-brothers zakhe yena single mother, at least umntana nge-holidays akayorhabula that particular missing element. And make no mistake, all single mother are doing very well. They do an enormous amount of work. I want to applaud them this evening, all single mother. They do an enormous amount of work. There is, however, one part that they cannot do. They cannot also become father kulomdwana, having done everything right with their sacrifice, hard work, you know. But that particular part about it, you know, needs to be compensated, so that if a biological father akakho no uncle, no tatomncinci, that particular father figure.
Sure. And I mean, you're saying something that is look, big ups to Omaknebe, your wife. That takes maturity. Otherwise, you know, sometimes we have men that even have to hide that they are calling their children because it is not allowed here, or that they are even sending money to their children. But to have a so-called stepmother or parent that facilitates the continuation of a relationship between the child and their parent, that is worth pausing and giving all the due praise to. Because the truth is, and we normally, just because somebody is your ex-boyfriend or your ex-husband, it doesn't mean that they are your child's ex-father. They'll always be their father, and the child needs a father. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now tell me. Of course, our conversation has become. I think the things that were very important are being said here, and we will definitely be touching on others. Coming to your work, I was thinking to myself, man, this man has people. I don't know if people know that. I mean, you are a qualified, not just in terms of experience, but also in terms of training, choir conductor. That you are. I mean, just a couple of moments ago, you shared that moving rendition of Luther Vandross classic, and those of us who we would have just said there's a song that touches me, and then I just say it. But you don't just say that, but you sing in a very convincing way, and behind the mic, and now you've just added another cap of being an author. Is there of these gifts one that is closest to your heart, or it's a matter of you giving your best at it at that particular time, whatever you are doing?
I think it's got to do more with giving the best at that particular time, but I might sound like I'm contradicting myself. Singing is healing to me. Singing is therapy. Singing is praise. Singing is affirming. Singing is medical. I love to sing, and sometimes even when I'm alone, I just sing to myself. But I was also grown up in a family of singers. Around Sabas and another unfair advantage then that I had was the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Those people can sing. They just love to sing, you know, and they can broaden the offerings of the genre of gospel and hymns, but broaden it up and break it even into little subgenres. They can sing. And one of the things that Bethel College, an Adventist institution that I went to for my high school life, one of the things that it was renowned for, apart from great academic progress, was music. You know, we would sing there. We would sing in the showers. We would sing a ironing room on a Friday afternoon when we shall have come back from Pelandaba Stadium, our grounds where we play soccer, and the holy hours we are approaching. We would, during the ironing for church and preparing for Sabbath, we would sing. As a matter of fact, a lot of quartets and other music formations, you know, were actually formed during that time because there was a culture of music. There was such a culture of music. So I love music. And then I also opted to study music theory, which I passed with a distinction with UNITRA when I completed my senior secondary teacher's diploma. And that helped me a great deal in terms of choir training. But I had been involved with conducting the choir even before that. I think I am humbled by so many gifts, including an ear for music, because singing is one thing, but having an ear for music is another thing. You know, so I then was massively blessed with all those kind of aspects when it comes to producing other musicians. So one of the spare time hobbies, if you may ask, that I love, it was to get a group of people who have never held a score of a song and teach them how to read notes. I love that. Teach them how to read notes, teach them how to interpret notes when it comes to approaching the lyrics of a song, teach them the disciplines of time in music, because music has its own phenomenon of time. Keep them how we keep time and interpreting the various time signatures in music, and how to stay in the pitch and in the tune and with the key. You know, I love that. I love that. So I have always volunteered as a choir trainer, you know, wherever I have been, at Bethel College. I trained the choir, conducted the choir, went to Zwelicha Church when I was working at Radio Ciskie. I contributed there also in terms of training and conducting the choir, and moved up to Joburg and did so at Kempton Park SDA, and did so at Orlando West, did so at Orlando East, and relocating back to the Eastern Cape, did so at New Brighton SDA. When I got there, took over the choir. I remember when the Cape Conference under Pastor Bomela revived the choral festivals in 2011. New Brighton was the biggest choir. You would vow that that choir was Port Elizabeth Mass Choir, but it was only New Brighton with about 78 voices. And I was conducting that choir. You know, it was a choir made of youth and old people, Nentangazam, but it was such a joy. And, you know, and from New Brighton Church to Kwamatlaki Church, contributing with choir training, you know. So I this is another love for me. There's a couple of things that I love, which I believe when God then selected things that he would put in my hand as a steward, you know, music was in one of those things. But not only choral music, but also music in terms of church hymns, and being a church chorister and standing in front of the church and conducting the entire congregation. I love that.
I know.
I love that. Yeah, I love that, you know.
You know what, one of the things that I admire, and I had to say this, as somebody who stands in front of the people as you do in your different roles, one of the things I admire about you is how it doesn't matter whether it is 5 people or 50,000 people. I always have the sense that this guy respects us, number one, and that he has just given himself, all of himself, to this moment. I mean, I've seen you in large and huge funerals. I've seen you in festivals. I've seen you at stadiums, but I've also seen you as Lalin, where there's 20 people, but the same energy. there must be a deliberate commitment for you to be able to maintain that in all those setups.
I think and I will carefully borrow the term anointing. Sure. I think the anointing of having talents and spiritual gifts fused in one. And so if there's an envelope called Putco Mafani and you open it, chances are you would find these two phenomena intertwined: talents, natural talents, and spiritual gifts. But that anointing goes with a responsibility that, you remember earlier on I spoke about. Now that we do what we love, we ought to love what we do. And loving what we do involves not measuring audiences. It involves being in the zone with a microphone. If you give me a microphone, I am in my zone, whether there are 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people or 100,000 people. I have used a microphone where there was 100,000 people, not once.
Sure.
But for me, this passion and mandate emanates from the belief that there is an anointing when you fuse the natural talents with spiritual gifts. And then it's like other things that I've done with a microphone that I probably cannot do for the second time around because I had a soul mandate.
Sure.
I was preaching somewhere just recently and I spoke of a soul mandate. Sure. And the soul mandate is the phenomenon or the narrative that for every crisis, God appoints a man. And so having a microphone for me at Ellis Park on the 11th of April, 2001, for me, that was a soul mandate.
Sure.
It was a task that was crafted for me, that was given me in order to take charge. All the other leaders around me that night, they were dumbfounded. They couldn't move. They couldn't speak. But the Lord Almighty put all those kind words in my mind and on my lips. The Minister of Sport, Utatu Ngonde Balfour, he was the Minister of Sport then, in the cabinet of President Thabo Mbeki. Sikesa Kogelo Madoda. There was also Dr. Robin Peterson, who was the chief executive of the PSL. There was also the chairperson of the PSL, Dr. Erwin Koza. There was also the chairperson of Kaizer Chiefs, the chairman, Kaizer Mdaung. And then there was the football general manager at the PSL, Andrew Dipila. And all these great men, they stayed away from addressing the issue that night. They just let me run my show. I just ran my show. I think I trembled later on about 2 a.m, then midnight.
Sure.
For that time, I was just running the show. I was in charge. I just loved being in charge. You know.
I love that honesty. I love that. Look, we were going to touch this. I did say that to you, but I wanted us to look at look, we always remember how you made us feel. We always remember how you made the nation feel. We always remember the calmness that your confidence brought there. But talk to me, even if it's for a moment, about I mean, you've just mentioned it now that later on around 2 o'clock in the morning, but here are people's bodies lying around, lifeless, children. I mean, I still remember that child that was crying and you were looking for their parent. Those memories are vividly playing in my mind. But what is going through in Putco Mafani emotionally and mentally? we've always spoken about how you made us feel, but what were you feeling? Do you still remember?
Well, during the execution of the task of restoring order, my focus was on saving lives. I felt that somebody needed to be in charge, and that somebody was me, because the microphone was in my hand. I felt that the pain of seeing 43 bodies on the field, I needed to pack that pain and deal with it later. But for the 43 not to become a 63 or a 73 or an 83, we needed somebody to sober down and lead and direct. And in my mind, there was no one else that would do that except the one who had a microphone in his hand. At some stage, if you remember in the book of Judges, Samson kills 1,000 Philistines with a jawbone in his hand. And the question that God asks Moses the other time was, what is it that you have in your hand? And it matters sometimes at a time of crisis for you to analyze what is in your hand and the purpose of what is in your hand. And so I think I dealt with the pain of whatever happened that night much later. Because I just told myself that someone has to be sober, someone has to direct, someone has to lead. So I never consulted them. I just ran the show. I just ran the show and instructed them, okay, now you guys are going to come to the field. You're going to address the nation. You're going to pray. Okay. Then I talked to these the stadium was overloaded, more than 60,000 in the stadium and millions on television, on SABC, on Sky News, on CNN. And I addressed those about the happenings at Ellis Park. Somebody needed to be sober. I would never quit that responsibility that night. Had I quit that responsibility that night, chances are, one, that society would have judged me harshly. Two, that more people could have died. But if you were to ask me to do it again,
definitely, yeah, I'm with you.
Because it was a sole mandate for that particular night.
I'm with you. Now, talk to me. You and I, we've spoken about this. And you capture it so well in your book. It's very easy to speak about the prize of greatness and giftedness, but there is a price to it. This week we buried probably one of, in my books, the greatest footballer that this world has ever seen, Diego Maradona. And we know the gift that he had. But the truth is that gift was not always best managed, properly managed. Now, it is easy for us to be excited about the attention that the gift brings, but there is a huge responsibility and even a curse that comes with being that much gifted, if not properly managed. Talk to me about gift and talent and greatness management, because one of the things I love about you, and this is not, you've had your own share of shortcomings, and you don't shy away from sharing those. But one of the things that you've always managed to do is to bounce back, number one. Number two is to keep relevant. Your career in the public eye has been there for decades now, but we still know Putco Mafani. Putco Mafani still has a voice. The people that you started with are no longer there, some of them, not because they are dead, but the voice has been quieted. Now, that takes a lot of management. Talk to me about that, Putco.
Well, look, talent management is, and from a corporate and private sector, they will tell you from an HR point of view that it is a sensitive area when you have to manage talent and retain it and don't lose it. That's another That's another issue. But talent management has to do with the talented one, whether they are a world champ Mdanzane, or whether they are a singer that packs the venues in South Africa, whether they're a broadcaster or an athlete. Talented people, and until we all realize it, those that are talented, they are a rare gem. They, in most cases, are given this talent as a key to open doors in situations where doors ordinarily would not be open. They are given boots to kick some doors open, just with their appearance, just with their presence, just with their being. Even before they get to do that which wows the audiences, just their absence, their presence. There is something divine about being talented. And sometimes we disappoint the appointer in that divine perspective. And that is why when you are a talented person, you at some stage have to realize that you're going to begin living a boring life socially. Because when you are talented, it means you are a chosen one, pulled from the pool of other gifted ones. But you are then the talented one, through which your family's fortunes can turn around, through which your organization's fortunes can turn around. This is not a mere social mandate. It has spiritual imperatives. And when we dig deep into that, we will even go back and say, when Samson was born and his incredible talent was given to him for one purpose only, to save the Israelites from the Philistines, period. Nothing else. Nothing else. That was his sole mandate. And until we accept and realize that when we are talented, it means we're going to know what to eat and what not to eat, how much to eat that which we eat, how much to drink that which we drink, what places to go and what places not to go, who to go with and who not to go with. And until the very, very talented people, we can put a particular fence around them that is defined by those values, then we would be surrendering them to the devil if we don't do that. And so if we see that there's an exceptionally talented person, then we need to get close to them and say to them, hey, listen, wena umehlulelwa kaThixo. The amount of talent there is in you is the kind of talent that will revolutionize the setup around your family, the setup around our organization, our church, and blah, 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 blah. So how do you nurse this talent? Tool number one, discipline. Sure, Spali. In the absence of discipline, talented people have actually found themselves on a self-destruction path in the absence of discipline. Can I say this, that talent without discipline is toxic? I'm going to say this again. Talent in the absence of discipline is toxic. It will kill you. It will destroy everything that made fans, thousands and in some cases millions of fans, thousands and millions of fans. It will make those things that used to make them say, wow, it will make them disappear in the ill discipline when it comes to talent. So what then should we do? When we then identify an exceptionally talented person or athlete in our community, we must remove them. Remove sometimes is not physical. Remove is ideological. Remove is philosophical. Remove it. We need to be jealously guarding ngala talent. I remember there was a very talented young boxer from Etinaha. His name was Vuyani Nene, Wonder Boy. His ring name was Wonder Boy. He was a left-handed boxer, Wonder Boy. During Wonder Boy's prime time, there was no junior flyweight in South Africa, and I don't care where you came from, whether you came from Tanzania by Amazi, whether you came from Tanzania, whether you came from Joburg, fighting in his division were the one and only Baby Jake Matlala. But here's the difference between Wonder Boy and Baby Jake. Wonder Boy had 80% talent and 20% discipline. Baby Jake had 20% discipline and 80% talent.
Other way around, yeah.
The other way around. Baby Jake had 20% talent, but 80% discipline. And that's why then Baby Jake went on to conquer the world because of that discipline. So when it comes to people that are talented and people that are gifted, until we realize, and this is where some of us, we burnt our fingers, forgetting that you cannot be going to places where you will not get enough rest. One of the weapons that Satan uses against talented people is lack of rest, because there is something divine about rest. R-E-S-T. Sure. If talented people found time to rest. When he created the world, he did so like a typical project plan for 6 days. And every day he would say, it is good. It is good. Day 2, it is good. Day 3, it is good. Day 4, it is good. And on day 6, he makes human beings and he says, it is good. And then he rests. But if we don't rest, I don't know how many DJs would move around, driving around in one night, going to DJ here and DJ there and getting fatigued because early in the morning they've got to catch the first flight out to Cape Town, because when they get to Cape Town they have a wedding to DJ there. After that they have to fly back to Durban because they're going to be there is no rest, including artists. South Africa. COVID-19 slowed things down and people are finding time to rest. Otherwise, another enemy number one when it comes to talent management is lack of rest. Talented people don't rest, particularly when talent is linked with revenue streams. When talented people know that they can appear, and just for appearing be paid 50,000, they don't rest. When they know that they can appear, be paid 25,000, 30,000, 75,000, they don't rest. There are talented people and artists who would be paid for a gig over a night, 100,000, 150,000, and the next day there's another one that's waiting for them. So when talent is linked to becoming a revenue stream also, the number one temptation is failure to rest. and failure to manage it, and compromising the discipline that goes with it. So to all the folks out there who are talented in one thing or the other, please make sure to find time to rest.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Putco. And then, look, I cannot end this conversation without reflecting on, of course, some of the things that I hear have also been mentioned. Talk to me about this process, about this baby, Putco Mafani, the price and prize of greatness. How did that come about? And what has it meant for you personally? What has it meant? We know what we get from it when we read it, but what has it meant for you, taking the time to reflect on your life and your story and the lessons gleaned from it?
Well, I remember when there was a gentleman by the name of Bongani who wrote Brenda Fass's book, I'm No Weekend Special. Sure. And when I hosted him on the BEE, and I interviewed him about Brenda's book, and he said to me that, but Putco, you also should write a book about your life. You are as talented in your field as Brenda Fassie was in her field. And I said, yeah, that's fine. And this is around 2015 or so. So 2016 goes by. I say, no, we will see this thing some other time. 2017. And this is when I'm in East London. And this thing comes to me again, that at least with the few milestones and the few, when I say milestones, I also incorporate the ability to rise above situations, the ability and the resilience to refuse to lie on the floor forever when you shall have fallen. Sure. So I use therefore the greatness in the book in the context of overcoming obstacles, rising above social ills, and rising after one has committed mistakes, overcoming things such as defects, life defects, and also, the ability to choose friends, the price you pay for choosing friends, the price you pay for, poverty-related situations, the price you pay for mistakes, whether they be your own mistakes or your parents' mistakes, the price you pay. I remember when it comes to defects, when I was at Bethel, I battled a lot with a defect of bad wetting, ukuchama ebedini. And this is something that can erode your self-esteem, particularly because
in high school already, and in Dizena on the primary, but then I got to high school, and when I got to high school, Yakubek and boarding school, and the mattresses were in trouble because I would wet one mattress for months until it was rotten. Then I somehow organized another one. It was a defect that had a medical situation in me. It happened for years, 4 or 5 years. And the interesting thing is that, and I'm coming to this thing of the title of the book, The Price and Prize of Greatness. While I'm paying a price this side of managing the defect and making sure that this defect does not interfere with my dreams, this defect does not stand in the way of my dreams of what I want to be in life. This defect,
actually should be viewed just like a tire puncture on a journey from Johannesburg to East London. And when you get a tire puncture somewhere in Jamestown or Queenstown, it doesn't mean you've reached your destination. It means it's a tire puncture in Queenstown, and Queenstown is not the destination. The destination is East London. East London is still calling. So you've got to attend to the tire puncture. And it doesn't matter whether it takes you 10 minutes or it takes you the whole afternoon or the whole day attending to the tire puncture. You got to attend to the tire puncture because your destination is waiting for you. And so I would never quit my dreams and disappoint my dream because of a defect. But hear me well now. I have this defect on one hand. Every morning, when the boys leave the dormitory, I've got to be the last one to make sure that they are gone so I can take my mattress out. But the interesting thing is that the school has also identified another skill in me, and that is that of loving keeping time. And the school has awarded me with the responsibility to be the bell ringer of the school. So at 5 in the morning, I ring the bell to wake up everybody. And then at 6:30, I ring the bell for them to leave the dormitory to go to the assembly, and I stay behind. After ringing the bell, I come back to the dormitory to stay behind, and they leave, and I take the mattress out. And then I go join them, and I ring the bell for the breakfast, and we go to the dining hall for the breakfast, and I ring the bell for the start of the school and changing the periods. And so it means on one hand I have a defect, on another hand I have power. So I run the entire school schedule. I am the one that rings the bell. When you are teaching, I walk out. I do not ask. I do not come to you and say, sorry, sir, please, may I go out? No, I collect my books. Actually, while you are teaching, when you see me collecting my books, you know it's time up. So while you are teaching, I collect my books. I walk out. I have authority to leave you while you are teaching and walk out to ring the bell. So God's amazing sense of humor in the context of grace is that while I'm dealing with a painful defect, because this defect is the one that makes other guys also to say it, even to the girls, Mzana, sometimes. When you think you're making an advance, when the weather changes and you are at school in the class and you can hear the sound of the thunder and you know it's gonna rain, you think, oh my goodness, my mattress is out there, my life is out there. So it terrorizes your soul. But a few minutes later, the power kicks in because you go to ring the bell. A few minutes later, the power kicks in, the authority kicks in, you got to ring the bell. And so one foot is on the defect, another foot is on the authority and power. And on average, I am okay. It's like having one foot on the ice bucket while another foot is on hot coals. And on average, I am fine.
Sure.
And that is the grace that I enjoyed. And that's why chapters in my book are called Grace 1, Grace 2, Grace 3. They're not called chapters because that's a journey of grace.
Sure.
It is a journey where you see flops and mistakes, but it is also a journey where you see someone being decorated with awards. Countless awards in professional football, countless awards in radio and television, countless awards with the provincial government of the Eastern Cape from the Premier's office, countless awards. So So while you're dealing with painful experiences on the other side, on the other hand, you are decorated, and these are prizes of greatness. You are dealing with a defect this side, you are dealing with a painful experience this side. On the other hand, you get to tour the world and travel all over Africa, Asia, Europe, and all of those places. And that's the prize of greatness. And more so being inducted in the Radio Hall of Fame in South Africa, the first one from the Eastern Cape.
Sure. I was actually gonna. It's almost 2 hours, by the way, and I think we have. I mean, we have not touched about those accolades. We have not touched about your relationship with your spiritual home, the church, and there are so many things I would have wanted us to touch. But let me end by this. We're gonna do the light questions, but before I do that. It would not be right if I end this conversation without asking you to impersonate the late Tata Mandela. We can end with that. I'm going to have to ask you to do that for me, please.
I loved that old man. I will do that. Just to give you a bit of a background, I loved him. And while we grew up, sibhizi izinto ze-riots eBhofolo ukuze ndithathwe nje umama uRhoji athi kwi-oledi lam lo mntana nomalungelo ubrilliant mse eBethel lo mntana, otherwise politics will kill him. And by then nabelungu aba, they were busy fearful of Mandela, who is at Robben Island, but at the mention of his name you would be arrested. And just the mention of his name, let alone if you have a t-shirt with his face, those things were banned. Those things were banned. You would never, a t-shirt with his face. So I was also longing to see this man. So when I was then at Radio Ciskie and he was released, wow. And seeing him walking out of Victor Fester prison and stepping into that Mercedes-Benz, and then they step off somewhere with UMhlobo Wenene and they raise their fists in the air together. I mean, I was in disbelief. Now, let alone then when he gets to Grand Parade and he gets to address the nation and the world. And I remember, I will not remember his entire speech. I just remember how he greeted us when he said, "Maqabane, ubomi bam busedlanzeni zenu. I place my life in your hands." And that speech still reverberates in my ear. It's like his famous quote when Madiba then spoke on behalf of the other Rivonia trialists when they appeared in court in 1963, and he then said, "I have cherished an ideal South Africa in which all persons will live with harmony and equal opportunities. This is an ideal, my Lord, which I hope to live for. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die."
Oh man, those words, but of course the perfect no, thank you, man. I would not have ended. Look, other people would have asked for Dumile Mateza, but this is me. This is the real dialogue. I had to ask you to impersonate another continent change maker. Thank you so much for that. Now, as we are closing this, look, a lot of people have been saying we need a part two. We're going to have to organize that. We need a part two. We're going to have to organize. In fact, we're going to have to do that in person with a live audience sometime next year. I put my word for that. I'll see how we do it. Now, your favorite African destination?
Egypt.
Egypt, huh? You've been there. I saw you. Yeah.
I went to Egypt, I think, 3 or 4 times. I went there. Oh, wait a minute now. I've got to get out of this Mandela character. Did you hear me? Did you hear me saying, I went to Egypt? Yeah. Yeah, I went to Egypt. I went to Egypt on 3 occasions with Kaizer Chiefs, and I went there also with Platinum Stars. And I have 3 unforgettable memories, 3 different episodes, which I will narrate in a few words. Of course, one being the visit to the pyramids and riding on the camels with Simba Marumo. While the other players were busy with other things, and Simba and I got on the camels and we went around, riding on the camels. I also played golf at a golf course that is just at the footsteps of the pyramids. Wow. And that's where I scored my first eagle in golf. But the one that I will never forget, and I pray that God endows me with enough money for me to fulfill this, to take my family to River Nile and enjoy dinner at River Nile. I will never forget. I think I went on a dinner at River Nile 3 times, where in the boat you have the Egyptian dancers entertaining you, but the menu, wow, the food is so divine. You're entertained by Egyptian dancers and you enjoy the food, and the weather is fantastic, and River Nile is quiet. When you happen to have been a Bible scholar and you think of all those things about the Nile River, you think about Moses, you think about the children of Israel, you think about, when you get to the pyramids and you think about the pharaohs, and when you see the desert, and you think about these, they translate to real tangible experience. By the time you approach the book of Exodus, it then has a different meaning because you were there. Because you were at the River Nile, because you went to the pyramids, because you went to the desert, it then has a new meaning. Sure. I just love Egypt, and the Egyptians are so proud of who they are. My third memory was when Kaizer Chiefs went to Egypt to play the Super Cup. By then, Kaizer Chiefs were the champions of the Cup Winners' Cup, which was the Mandela's Cup, which we won in Luanda in Angola, and came to play the second leg at Ellis Park Stadium. And part of what the requirement was from the Confederation of African Football, CAF, was that we had to participate in the Super Cup and play against Al Ahly, which is now coached by Coach Putco Mafani. And so we went then, we doubled up the trip to Egypt again to play the Super Cup at the Cairo National Stadium. That stadium, when Al Ahly plays, that stadium is a sea of red supporters because Al Ahly colors are red and white. And that stadium is a sea of red supporters. They actually make you feel that you are far away from home. Vociferous, energetic, loud and proud. Loud and proud, those Egyptians. And so Smiley, I won't forget this. Before the game starts, and I'm sitting up there at the presidential suite, I'm sitting with the late Ruben, who was employed by the PSL. He was part of the delegation. But then Kaizer Chiefs and Mr. Mulifi Oliphant, the president of SAFA, were down on the field with the dignitaries that were greeting the players. And we're sitting up there, and I think a few guys like Bobby Mutawung and others, we're sitting up there, and we're watching. I mean, the stadium is packed. There's not a single Chiefs supporter. It is 100% on the stands, Al Ahly. Even the supporters that are from the embassy, the few South Africans, about 4 of them, they are sitting with us here with the South African flag. And one thing that I noticed there, and that's my parting shot, after the meet and greet by the dignitaries and the national anthems have been sung, and then as the Kaizer Chiefs players got together for a team poster, a team picture, and Al Ahly players went towards the center. I will never forget this. They went towards the center of this field. When they got there, instead of starting with supporters, first things first, they all knelt down on their knees around that little circle at the center. They all knelt down and plugged their foreheads to the pitch, and they were praying. We did not have an answer for that. And regardless of their religion, because they are largely an Islamic country, regardless of their religion, when you are united in whatever you believe in, whether it is African religion or Inkolo Yabantu or Christianity or Islamic or Hinduism or whatever, when you are united in purpose behind your religion, and your religion is not mixed with elements where some people bayayiqeqezela lo religion, then your belief in your religion will take you far. And these guys, all of them knelt and they prayed for some time. Where are we? We are busy talking amongst ourselves. We don't even have fans to wave at. And these guys are praying. I said to Ruben, I said, hey, bra Rubes, sikiwe apa. He did not understand me. I said, we've lost the game.
I'm not even going to ask what the score was.
And indeed, the game started. In the first half, they scored 2 goals. We scored 1. Halftime, it's 2-1. In the second half, they score again 3-1. And even their goalkeeper scores against Brian Baloyi, against our own keeper. And the game ends 4-1. Smiley, the power of everybody cohesively united in a belief system. I will never forget that.
And your favorite dish as well, it doesn't have to be African?
I love my lamb with dumplings. And nyame kusha ine dumplings. Bayayazi phaya ekhaya xa ndifika kufuneka kuphekwe ngolo hlobo.
Inyama egusha le dumplings. And then your favorite one of your favorite books or your favorite book of all time?
I think I will be biased again towards the earlier discussion about Mandela. It's The Long Walk to Freedom.
Sure.
I I read that Long Walk to Freedom. I could hear his voice. And that's one thing that I also carried into writing my own book. That the readers need to hear the voice of the author. And the author sometimes is not a well-known person. Yes, it is a little bit of an added advantage when the author is a known person. But sometimes the author is not a known person, but you still need to hear their voice and imagine their face through their storyline, how they are narrating, particularly where a non-fictional autobiography has been written. You need to hear the voice of the author. There has been books that are written by famous people, and it has humbled me. And I wrote to Barack Obama on Facebook, and I said, President, it is a privilege for me that a few days ago I saw at Exclusive Books, Rosebank in Joburg, my book put next to yours. And another book that was there was Proverbs book, the one who presents the idols, because he also has published a book, I think, and Judge Musinike also, when you see books written by famous people, it is easy to catch their voice. But guess what? The most fascinating thing that I have attempted to do is to read a book whose voice, the author, the voice of that author, to find that it's not known out there, and you still hear the voice. I like that.
I'm with you. And then your favorite album or artist of all time?
Luther Vandross.
Luther Vandross. I understand. and then your favorite quote or mantra?
Hey, I like O.T. Mngabisa as a life coach. I liked, from a radio point of view, Dambile Tuswa as a life coach, as a career coach.
Sure.
And let me also say that the reason why I approached Dr. Jongimpi Papu to do the foreword in my book is because I like him as a life coach.
Sure.
And I was very lucky that he agreed. And he took my manuscript and he went through it, and he came with a particular interpretation and helped me also, even in retitling the book, because the book originally was not called The Price and Prize of Greatness.
I remember.
So Uchikija then helped me. When we were roommates at Bethel, we called him Jigija with Dr. Papu. He helped me to see, to articulate actually the greatness in the sense that we spoke about earlier on. Greatness in the presence of all the negatives, and greatness that follows you with all the positives. And that's how I arrived at the title of The Price and Prize of Greatness. So he is also a life coach to me.
Sure.
And we also find comfort in Nomamkhenebe to listen to him talking about life and marital issues.
Sure. All right. And what are the words that inspire you generally? One of your favorite mantras. I know, others love words like we have nothing to fear for the future, only as long as the greatest one of the world. Or what are those words that, just always come to mind for you? I mean, with you or for you? Quotations.
Yeah. There is one that I crafted myself, and it keeps me going. And it says, if you want to be happy, make other people happy first, and you'll be rewarded with lots of happiness. I coined that one, and it keeps me going. With due respect, there's a whole lot of quotes that I love. There's another one from Umadiba, which has been part of my email signature for quite some time. The one that says there's nothing that is as rewarding and fulfilling as when one's efforts are recognized. Yeah.
That's so true. And that Putco Mafani, author, entrepreneur, radio broadcaster, friend of man and a friend of God. Thank you so much for your service. This world is a better place because you are here. And thank you for your friendship as well at a personal level. May God bless you. This is the longest we have had, but I promise you, this is the one that has had one of the most numbers consistently. And this has been over 2 hours, but we have been having quite a large number of people that are still with us. Everybody, thank you so much for sticking with us. Next week we are having, actually, I think I did mention that next week we are having Vuyani Jahana, and then after that we are having
wow.
Yes, and after that we are having Khomotso, one of my favorite personalities, one of my favorite people, Khomotso Moshuki, the founder and the creator behind the music of the group. No. Yes. So we're going to be having him as we are closing. But thank you so much, everybody, and may you have a good evening. And thank you for spending your day.
And all the best with these two shows that you're mentioning. I mean, Vuyani Chahana, umfundisi wami lowo sizeke amaqhinebe sobabini uchade usister kaSonwabile Mangcotshwa, and I admire the man. I see his strides in the corporate. And I saw his strides at Vodacom. I saw his strides at SAA. I still observe his many strides, And Khomotso is also a loaded, talented person. And that will make very interesting conversations. Thank you so much, Smiley. Thanks to you, and thanks to your audience also.
Thank you so much, Smiley. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We trust that you enjoyed another long walk to freedom, but the long conversation. I absolutely enjoyed it. And till next week, and in the words of that great African, Robert Sobukwe,